Think, Lori,
Yeah, let
when
me
you
just
give me
get
the
everything going here.
thumbs up, we'll.
See all kinds of time.
There we go.
I walked in right with Paul. Yeah, glad to see you here.
I was trying to keep. I was trying to stall him.
They do it in an appropriate amount of time.
Okay, I'm ready, Julie. Ready?
Okay. All right, I would like to call the meeting to order. If you would all rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance with me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, well, good morning, everyone. We now have time for public comment, and we have a guest. Greg, have you got public comment? Would you care to join us at the table?
Thank you, Madam Chair
Yes.
and Commissioners. My name is Greg Langmo. I'm a local farmer here in the area. And I approach you today, pardon me, to discuss County Ditch 19 and County Ditch 17. For those who may not be familiar, 19 drains Lake Ripley and Chicken Lake just west of town. I live just on the east edge of Chicken Lake, and my mother lives just north of Lake Ripley. And then those two come together out by Keith Fortune, back just to the west of Keith's. And it comes through Litchfield, and 19 goes north along Highway 34, and right at 34 where it goes underneath the road by the landfill out there. Then it turns into 17. Neither of those ditches have been redetermined since 1904. As a result, none of our friends in the city of Litchfield or our friends around Lake Ripley have contributed to the maintenance of that ditch. We know for sure that it really needs it. It's really bad. My father bought his and mom's farm decades ago, and it looks the same. The ditches don't work, they're plugged, full of trees. We would like to encourage you to call for a redetermination on those two because 19 dumps into 17. However, we're not sure that we would like to see you put a moratorium on any further work, but perhaps we could continue with the work. They are doing some work on 17 down in the end. It's completely plugged, and we hear from some of the neighbors that there's some beavers in there are backing up a farm this young man is working on today. So we would like you to continue to do the maintenance, but perhaps there's a way, and Ms. Scheffelbein could probably tell us if that's legal to say, let's go ahead and continue the maintenance, but it's gonna be paid by all of those on the new list. And we think that spreading the costs amongst those who have benefited is the fairest thing that we could do. The last point that I would like to make on another topic is there are ordinances in Meeker County that demand a certain amount of maintenance be done on your residence. And when you have junk cars, tractors, garbage, and that kind of thing, it's typically reported to planning and zoning. And we would like to implore the county attorney to work closely with planning and zoning to enforce those ordinances so that those who are neighbors to it actually can experience the value for which they're being taxed. Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I appreciate your time.
Thank you,
Greg, I
Greg.
just have a quick question. Have you
Yes.
put any complaints in about the properties that,
Yes,
so you've complained with?
yes, yes.
And Greg, we do have on our agenda coming up that we're going to be discussing an upcoming open meeting.
Nice, yep.
for ditches 17 and 19.
And we'd like to see you keep doing the work, but let's invite those folks to help us pay for it. We don't want to have them come in after we've paid for all of the maintenance already. Thank you.
Very, very well done. Thank you. Do we have any other individuals who would like to place a public comment? Any other folks today? Okay, well, thank you. Moving on, the agenda, we have the actual agenda then for today. Do we have any comments about today's proposed agenda?
Madam Chair, I'd move the agenda as printed.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion about today's agenda?
I'd just like to add that we fix that
Yes.
light.
It has been noted.
I've already emailed Joel.
Been noted.
I didn't see a thing.
It's been,
Oh, flicker it.
Yeah, the light.
Like little strobe
It's not
light.
just your eyes.
I'll have a headache here in about 15 minutes. Okay. Well, other than needing to change a light bulb, I'd like to take a vote on approving today's agenda. All those in favor?
aye.
Opposed? Okay, our agenda motion carries. Then we need to take a look at last meeting's minutes. We
Madam
shall-
Chair, I
Yes.
make a motion to approve the minutes as printed and distributed.
I'll second that.
We have a second. Any discussion? Any additions or corrections to our minutes? Then we'll take the vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes have been approved. Okay. Then, I get the honor of sharing. We have 3 individuals who have worked with us for at least 15 years. And I don't know if those folks are planning to come in to receive their certificates or not. I'll state their names and show their certificates, and if they come later, we can share these with them. We have Shanna Krebsbach. She has been with us for 15 years. We have Brad Listerud. He has been with us for 15 years as a custodian. Shanna works with the corrections department, and Brad is with our custodial department. If he comes, I'm gonna have him bring a light bulb. And then we have Braden Piram, and he works with our parks department. So, a little round of applause, 15 years. That's a wonderful accomplishment for our colleagues. So, takes care of that. All right, then I believe next we have Monica.
Hello.
Good morning.
All right. I am here for Greg. He is out of state. I guess the first thing is the watershed district. This just came to our department during the transition between Paul and Andrew. So we're not real familiar with the watershed district, but I was told that Danny, you can maybe do this part of the meeting.
Yeah, sure. So I listened in on this new, it's basically a new plan that they're dealing with the Mississippi River watershed area. And for Meeker County, it has a Clearwater River there, watershed. And I also talked to Mike Hausman, who's on the One Watershed, One Plan for the south part. I guess every different watershed is getting created by this new One Plan, One Watershed, or whatever, One Water Plan. And it takes these smaller watersheds and kind of consolidates them. And it's more for trying to get more money that way, based off that way, through Bowser. The old method is a Clearwater watershed, for example, would try to get grants for their projects. Now with this new plan, this Mississippi River One Watershed, One Plan will get the monies for that. And I know I know Meeker County has opted out of one of these plans before. I don't know which one, I can't remember. Mike said it was a few years back. Do you remember that one, Beth, or not?
I remember the discussion,
Okay.
and I don't remember which one. Mike was very on top of that, because it might have been before you even, well,
Yeah.
no,
I don't remember opting
but
out.
I remember, but I can't give you any more
Okay.
information.
But, so I'm appointed on the one that Mike was, and this is actually a whole new plan
Right.
that deals with Clearwater. And after talking to Mike, and I also talked to my brother Bob, who's on the Clearwater watershed, and he said it would probably be beneficial that Meeker actually go into it. That way you have a voice for this particular plan, and I would, and then I listened in to the conversation, the watershed one plan and group, and basically what I came to the conclusion with, and I talked to Steve about this too, Paul, in that it seems like you should have a voice, and this is the only route to go is to opt in it, have a voice on it, and hopefully, basically you get appointed for a policy committee. So then that will be our voice. And it's just a different method. They're consolidating watersheds, thinking other watersheds are linked to other watersheds, and that's a chain reaction. It takes away some localization there, which I don't like, but there's really not too many other options it feels like we're given.
And this was started a few years ago when they did the one plan, they worked on that for.
Yep.
That was what Mike was talking about. So I
South
don't-
Fork,
I don't-
South Fork.
South Fork, yep.
So I don't think we have a choice either if we wanna have a voice, or if there's ever any extra funding, if you're not gonna get any.
And that's the conclusion I got, is that if you ever want any funding for Clearwater,
Right.
you should be part of it. And we're only 4% of this particular plan, Clearwater is.
It's
Or
probably not
Meeker.
huge either way, but so
No.
it's gonna.
But, you know, I know we pump the brakes and we should because it's so new
Right.
to all of us to know exactly what's going on. And,
Well, and that's my conversation with Danny too. I just, I figured the wedding was coming. I just would like the date first. So that was why I
Makes
wanted to,
sense.
let's dig into this a little bit more and, we probably did, it's a shotgun wedding. We probably don't have a choice, but,
yeah, it feels that way.
we're a little concerned about giving up some of that local voice. And when you're 4% of something, are you gaining? Are you
It gets
losing?
swallowed- it
That's
gets
debatable.
swallowed up, but it
Yeah.
isn't costing anything, and it isn't,
No,
you'll
no.
be included in the conversation.
Right, and if we don't, Clearwater's that much less powerful, which is counterproductive of what we actually want,
Yeah.
so. But that's all I had in that, I mean, seem like nice people, they're all soil and water people that are making this meeting, through different counties and stuff. And I think it's Stearns, Meeker, Sherburne, and maybe Benton, are what's actually part of it. So, like I said, I think it's pretty much a shotgun wedding, and I don't think we really have much.
No.
We should probably pass it just to get our voice in there.
So you're recommending that we pass the resolution?
Yeah, as long as we're able to get on the policy committee, and I'm assuming you can, no matter what.
That should be you. That's
I
your
know, the other
corner.
one, I thought I was already on it, and I was like, wait, there's another plan? Holy crap. But, that's what I would recommend.
So you're making a motion to pass it?
I'll make a motion to pass, both the resolutions, the boundary establishment for one watershed, one plan program in Mississippi. And do we need to do one at a time, or
Well,
just do
that's
them?
our option.
I'll just do them both together then,
We can.
and supporting the one watershed, one plan, St. Cloud, Mississippi River.
Okay, we have a motion to accept both of the resolutions. Do I hear a second?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Okay, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? Do we have any questions? I don't know if Monica has anything to share
I'm
or,
not.
okay. Any further discussion
You're
or
gonna stick to
questions?
plating today?
Let's stick to zoning.
Well, because this is a resolution, we will need a roll call vote. And may I call on Corey to conduct the roll call?
Absolutely. Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Schiefelbein,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Olberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Bredesen.
Yes. The resolution has passed, both of them.
Now, I have a form here that it looks like I need a few signatures on, if you guys could stop down after your hearing. It's, Julie, I need yours, Andrew, I need yours, and Cory. Then, I have a conditional use permit for Schneider Farms. They want to, it was approved by the planning commission to, expand their current Class B feedlot from a total capacity of 350 animal units to 651.
Madam Chair, I attended the planning and zoning meeting. This was up in my district there, and basically what Schneider Farms are doing, they currently house the same amount of cattle on a couple different locations. So basically, they're gonna bring everything home under one roof, to one farm. So that's why they need to increase the animal units on this particular parcel, and they do a very good job. So I would make a motion to approve the conditional use permit for Schneider Farms out of Watkins.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that motion, Madam Chair.
Any discussion?
I'm assuming there's a public hearing.
Yeah. Yep.
Objections?
No.
Yes, that was my question. Were all neighbors notified? And was there any opposition?
No opposition.
I have a question. From the location of the farm, how many mile radius do they notify?
Quarter mile.
And it only has to be a quarter
Yep, per
mile.
state statute.
Any additional questions or comments? Then we'll take the vote. All those in favor of the conditional use permit, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
All right, then the second conditional use permit is for Linda Terry Tebow. They're gonna do shoreline alterations, and, so they needed a conditional use permit to move more than 10 cubic yards in the shoreline district and within the shore impact zone.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second that.
I have a motion for another conditional use permit. And it has been seconded. Do we have any discussion on this one? Paul, this is in your district?
Yeah, I was at the meeting. There was nobody there to object to it at all. It's pretty straightforward. I'm just glad they're getting a permit, because a lot of this stuff gets
Yeah.
done without a permit.
Yeah,
Fences aren't put up and we get runoff into lakes that shouldn't happen because people don't follow the correct procedures. So I'm
Yeah.
always appreciative when somebody doing something in a shoreline actually comes and gets the permit.
and when they do stuff in the shoreline like this, it's usually always beneficial to the lake.
Yep.
All right. This is on Lake Jenny, right? Mhm. All right, is there any additional discussion or questions? Then we'll take the vote. All those in favor of the conditional use permit, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Monica.
Thanks, Monica.
Yep. Okay. And there's Brian.
Good morning.
Good morning, Brian.
Brian Cruz, County Sheriff, just one item before you here this morning. This is a 2020 Emergency Management Performance Grant, or commonly known as the EMPG grant. The state of Minnesota is really behind, so these are the funds that we should have got last year. And this grant is in the amount of $20,777, which is a matching grant on our part. So asking for approval on this grant.
Move to approve.
I'll second, Madam Chair.
We have a motion and a second on the grant approval. Is there any discussion? I have a question. In the 2020 budget, was this budgeted for 2020? And now we're just going to receive it now?
Correct.
Will it be again in 2021?
We hope, we have no idea.
Oh,
Yeah, so they just finished the 2020 process, that's what this is.
okay.
The 2021 process should have already been started, but we have no information on where they're at. So ultimately, if we do get the 2021 grant in '21, it'll make our budget look really good. So the budget for emergency managers is about $80,000. So these grants are covering about a quarter of that. So if we get both of them this year, it'll cover half of that, so.
So would we do training 2 times in 2021 then, or would it just be?
It would just be part of our operations. So this grant just covers a portion of our emergency management operations.
Like our director, right?
Right.
Pays part of her wages,
Yep.
et cetera.
Let's see if I have any other questions. Any additional questions or discussion? We have a motion. We'll take the vote. All those in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, thank you.
Sheriff Cruz?
Brian, I got a quick, I'm sorry, Stu.
No, I got one too, but
I
go
got
ahead.
a quick question. I'm trying to stay away from the news, but, they're talking a lot about officer training. Do we do enough training with our officers? Do you feel?
Yep.
With the training?
Yep.
Stay on top of the new, whatever the new laws are,
Yeah.
whatever.
So we, there's a mandate from the state on, X number of training hours, and we always far exceed those training hours,
We've always done that.
and we've always done that. Yep, and we'll continue to do that. And I'm sure there'll be new training coming out, because there's new legislation being introduced, and
Right, we had quite a discussion at Woodland about the new statute on, don't remember the number, but
the use of force.
the use of force and that. It's gonna present some real issues for you and, a lot of law enforcement agencies.
Yep, a lot of challenges with that, absolutely.
Now, they're talking, and we'll probably get into it one of our Woodland recap, but they're talking about some officers, if somebody's sitting with a gun gonna commit suicide, they're not gonna go in because if they, right?
Right.
Not everybody has this, the same policy, but, I mean, it's kinda scary to me.
Yeah, so there's a lot of discussion statewide, and I don't know that there'll be a statewide policy, but there'll be statewide guidance. But some of that includes, so a person is all alone and in their home and threatening suicide. Traditionally, we've gone into that house to remove them, but there are different liabilities and different, requirements of us, and in the future, we may not go into that house. It may be a phone call, maybe a different approach, but it probably won't look
I
like what we did.
struggled a little bit to see the connection between that statute and that, maybe you can clear it up.
So there's things that the new use of force statute has changed on how we deal with things. And one of the things that they directly addressed was that particular individual. Because there's been incidences where that scenario has led to the death of somebody. So the statute has changed, which it puts the liability on us. So if we do something that prompts them to do something, then we react, now we're liable for that death. So in the course of what we do and what we've been trained to do, our presence there could trigger them. Our actions could trigger them, but that puts the liability back on the officer, and now that officer could be charged in the death of that person. So the guidance and the training that's coming out is when we're not gonna put ourselves into that situation. If there's no other public safety issue, if it's the person themselves and nobody else is involved, we probably won't go into the house like we used to. So if there's other people in the house and public safety is being threatened, we still do what we always have done. It's just that person who's alone, and the statute specifically addresses that scenario.
That's what, to me, it's gonna just cause more angst for the men. And we have so many people with mentally ill, and then it's just gonna put us backwards in a lot of areas.
No, I agree, yep.
I feel bad for what you guys are going through right now, tell you. So, thank you.
I have a little lighter note, actually. It's,
Sorry.
no.
Yeah.
You gotta balance things out. It is that way right now, but, Watkins Ambulance the other day wanted me to bring up, and as long as the sheriff is here, I want to bring it up to the board and to the sheriff that they're very appreciative of our EMT program with the sheriff's department. In his words, he said it is awesome and it's been a game changer. They work very well together. He said they're very well trained. They've been on some car accidents. We've had them on a few of our calls too, and he just wanted to pass along that Watkins is very appreciative of the EMT program that's partnered with the sheriff's department within the county. So
Appreciate that. We'll reach out to them too, so.
yeah, pass.
And that was one of the things we did, so we spent some of that CARES Act money on that heart monitor, and they've been using that, and they're in front of the ambulance and the other medics, and so, yeah, they've done a good job, and hopefully we can get, we lost a few of the volunteers, and we're trying to get some more back in there, but it's worked well for us.
And for the public, I think it's important to know that when we have these type of paramedics basically come on scene, I mean, short of cutting somebody open on the living room floor to do surgery, I mean, these guys are very well trained, and it extends life. I mean, the chances of people out here in rural community making it to St. Cloud or where we need to get them for ALS is huge. So it's definitely it's noticed. It's something to be in the room with them when they come on scene, because they extend the chances of people, of that patient, incredibly. So.
And we, in addition to that, the volunteer program, we have 2 deputies who are medics, and we're gonna maintain their medic license. And both of them have experience, working in a metro area, which, I mean, you're getting experience there and you're going call to call. So they do have an extensive background, and we're gonna maintain those, medic licenses as long as they wanna do that, cause it really has helped us. And it's helped the community a lot, so.
And he also brought up the fact that, in the last 10 years, 10 years ago, I mean, they had to get the patient to St. Cloud Hospital, and now, there's a lot of things they can do on board, that the public doesn't realize how they've increased the chances of survival dramatically from a rural area to get them into a major advanced life support situation. So he just wanted to share how pleased they are with the partnership.
I have a question. How many rescue squad areas are there within Meeker County? Does each community have their own? Like Steve, you're on the Eden Valley crew.
Yeah.
You have Watkins, Eden Valley, Grove City, Dassel, every,
Cosmos, Litchfield, yep.
they do.
And those are all volunteers, and those are all basic life support, and then our medics are advanced life support. So we really do enhance that program.
How many volunteers at each community, or does it vary?
It varies, I don't know.
It varies. But rescue, we have, I think, 35 combined, but 18 on rescue, 26 on fire, but some go both ways, so it's like 34, I think, total. And
That's interesting.
Yep.
Well, very good.
I think 6 rescue squads, official rescue squads in the county, I think there's.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yep.
Thank you, Brian. Any other comments or questions for Brian while we have him here?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. What do we have next? I believe it's-
Phil's coming on in.
Let's see, Brian, and then, is Phil there? Hi, Phil!
Morning.
What does that face mask say?
Viking.
Vikings?
You watched them lately?
Well, I didn't watch the Twins for a while.
Oh, I heard that.
Skull, yeah.
Good morning, Phil Schmalz, Meeker County Public Works Director. I've got one item for you this morning. It's to award our contract for paving on CASA 1 and CASA 6, as well as 3 patches around the county on CASAs 20, 15, and 17. There's the prices we received. We had 3 bids. The low bid was 9.3% below our estimate, which I like to see. Got good numbers, in my opinion. CASA 1 is a 15.5 mile pavement widening and overlay project. CASA 6 is the shorter version of the same, which is attached to our 2020 grading project. And then CASA 15, 17, and 20 are culvert replacements, radius widening, and then a bump dip situation on CASA 15 specifically that we're trying to get repaired. We've tried to do some of those smaller jobs with quotes in season, and the price is never reasonable. So I was happy to see pretty reasonable prices on the patches when we lumped it together with this work.
What is the timeline?
I believe the contracted start date is after the 4th of July.
Especially for the long stretch there down
Yes, that'll be second.
to Highway 7.
The apparent low contractor intends to do the CASA 6 work first, because that's gonna get paved in conjunction with our federal grading project from last year, because they're connected.
So sometime after the 4th of July.
Yes.
Beginning in July.
Madam Chair, I'd move to award the SAP 047-601-023 and SAP 047-606-011 for CASAs 15, 17, and 20 patchwork to Knife River out of Sauk Rapids for estimate of $2,443,425.35.
Second that motion.
We have a motion, it has been seconded. Do we have any comments or questions for Phil?
Just one comment. It's kind of odd, you see a bid that's $2 million, but yet they've got the 35 cents on the end.
Yeah. Well, every bid is itemized, so we've got, I wanna say 30 different pay items on this project.
Okay.
And each one, they'll bid it to the penny.
Well, I imagine there's plenty of jobs where it comes down to the very small amount to
It can, yeah.
get the job.
These weren't necessarily real tight, but I've seen tight bids.
That's estimated too, Paul. They rounded up to the nearest dollar then, right? It's said and done.
When we actually pay, we'll pay to the penny.
Oh, really?
We have to match, their unit price drives what we pay them, so how many units they actually installed times the unit price that they bid.
And if there are any changes to this as things roll along, how is that handled?
Then we'll, document a contract change with the contractor.
And then that comes before the board too?
Can, depends how big it is.
Yeah.
A lot of times, those are heat of the moment things, so to pause, negotiate, and come to the board, you're holding up the project, which is gonna add cost.
True.
So, we try to handle those with the contractor and our office as much as possible, but if they get to be something substantial, very large, then we'll come to the board.
If it's $1,000 or something, then it's
We'll
probably
handle
not
it.
such a big deal, but if it gets more of them.
Yep.
And is Knife River out of McLeod County? Where is it?
Sauk Rapids,
Sauk Rapids.
yep, up by St. Cloud.
Okay, there it's stated. It's stated.
And they have our CASA 6 project from last year too, so it should be a pretty seamless, paving for those two projects right next to each other, having the same contractor.
Okay. Any additional comments or questions for Phil? All right, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of approving this contract, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
I don't have anything else for you.
One quick question.
Yeah.
That stretch over there in Collinwood Township, are they gonna be laying the blacktop pretty soon, you think, or?
Our project, CASA 6, that will be in conjunction with this overlay project,
So, before the 4th, or?
before the 4th.
Okay.
Yeah, we met with the contractor last week, and they're looking to maybe start moving stuff out there in early May.
Oh, good.
And they'll have surface prep work to do before the paver can. They wanna get after it.
Still a better project letting that sit over winter and settle.
Absolutely, the frost, it works magic, you know, you think you put a good road together, a good compaction, culverts are taken care of, but I built roads both ways. If you pave them the same year you grade them, you're always gonna be able to tell the difference. That road should be much smoother than it would have been had we paved it the same year we moved all the soil.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bill. Now we have Jacob.
Well, good morning,
Good morning.
Board Chair, Commissioners. Jacob McClellan, District Supervisor for the Minnesota Department of Corrections, here to present the income contract for the Sentence to Serve program, Mary Jean Anderson specifically, since we have one FTE in that position. Just to summarize, the contract is looking at, it's a 2-year contract that we take into consideration. We're always kind of going backwards sometimes with this because we have union negotiations where we saw a 2 and a 2.5% increase, so we have to look at that, and we're always kind of playing catch up with that with these next 2 years. And then insurance increases. So for fiscal year 22 and 23, it's a 3.38% increase, and for fiscal 23, 3.4%. So essentially that looks, our current budget allotment for this calendar year is $73,000. So we would see an increase. I believe we'd have to patch $800 for the remainder of this calendar year, and then we would increase the budget accordingly to the what I have in here. So the increase is $75,000 for fiscal year 22 and $77,000 for fiscal year 23 for the contract to cover that within the county budget. But really, the impact of STS, I mean, that's kind of also what I'm here to talk about too, is that I think I have presented a lot of what Mary Jean does in conjunction with Brady, specifically with the parks. So that's kind of this is kind of her season right now, working with Brady, but the work that she's done within the municipalities, within the counties, the nonprofits that we have within Meeker County. It's one thing to see the tangible things that she's done within the parks, within the painting project she's done. The other impact she has is that the people that she works with. That we're working with a lot of these clients that have never worked a job. They don't have a lot of social skills. This is an opportunity for her to also teach them some skills, working with other people, working with a supervisor, learning just skills that they've never learned before. So there's some things that she passes on to these folks after she's done with them. She spoke with me a few months ago about an individual that was asking for a reference check from her to provide a letter of recommendation, and that individual did get a job within the hospital. So just some of the things that she sees and is able to do with these people is very valuable. That there's some lives that she can touch, there's some skills that she can teach. So just the value of the STS program is one, you seeing the tangible things that is done around in the community, but also the things that you don't see that's happening intrinsically with these individuals that she passes along to them too. So, but essentially, just looking at motion for approval with the contract for the next 2 years, and then I'll work within the budget to make adjustments for this calendar year, and then proposals for the next 2 calendar years to account for those cost increases.
So you're asking for $152,789.
The total cost of the contract, correct?
Because the 50,000 something comes then to us from the state.
So yes, yep. Essentially, the state pays, and then actually the county or the state will request for reimbursement from the county. So the 75% will come in the form of an invoice from the county for the 75% of the contract. So the state pays the 25%. So we pay the entire cost of Mary Jean, and then invoice those 4 increments. So it's twice a year. So the amount due would be for this July 30th. The $37,537 will come in the form of an invoice from the state for the cost of the 75% of the contract. So the January would be the increments of the invoicing.
How many people a year are run through this particular program?
Oh, I thought I should have brought that number, but I can say obviously I have to caution this last year wasn't a good year, and we're still dealing with COVID restrictions. But Mary Jean averages 2.3 crew per day. That's an average. So if you look at that and factor that in, so there's you know, well over 100, 200 people over the course of the year that go through a crew. That's adults and juvenile. So we see some folks that are coming from the jail that she picks up and brings through crew, and there's also folks that are coming from the community that are referred through their probation officers that are sometimes placed on crews in different locations, like Threads of Hope is a common placement location, or also working directly with Mary Jean. And I can provide that number to you as well. So I can pull the last few years of what the crew numbers were to give you an kind of accurate. But I just would caution that 2020
Was a
little tough. It was a little tough because we did have to shut down the crew just because of with COVID restrictions. The jails having their restrictions with releasing folks from the jail out into the community. So I would just, I mean, I think every agency in the state or county and city would have an asterisk next to 2020 and probably most of 21, obviously with what we have for restrictions. But I will certainly provide those numbers and pass those along so you can kind of see the trends and what we've had in relation to our adult and juvenile crews throughout.
year-round.
Year-round,
Not just-
correct.
There's
Nope.
quite a list of things attached from Braden with the Parks Department, and I wondered also, but then you provided where, Threads of Hope, and they do other things around the
Yep.
county as well.
Yep, so within the winter, out shoveling hydrants, doing the toy drive, the Christmas tree pickups, and it's a year-round program. It's not intended for just to be kind of. I will say that this time of year, between now and probably September, October, it's Mary Jean's busiest time because a lot of her time is spent within the parks. But throughout the year, it's either whether it's a painting project, working within the county shops, doing the toy drives and the city cleanups. Yeah, there's projects to be had throughout the communities.
All right.
I have a question. I've
Sure.
watched this program. It's getting expensive over the years. A lot more expensive than it was. And in talking to some of my counterparts, do you know how many counties are no longer doing? I mean, it seems like there's been a decrease, and I think at some point in time, you have to look at if the reward is worth what we're putting into it. And when I see 3.5% increases, I'm not understanding why. It seems like a lot to me.
No, and that's.
And I've always backed this program, but I do think it's time for us to take a look. And I'm not gonna consider last year. I look back at the projects that were done. We didn't have a fair. We didn't, that was out of everybody's control. But when you're looking at $75,074 and then $77,714 for our share, I think at some point in time that we need to, as a board, start taking a look at it. This is, and Mary Jean's a wonderful, it's nothing to do with, I love her, but I just think as commissioners, there's gonna come a time, it doesn't necessarily have to be today, but I think you will also agree that there are counties that are not doing this. And I think it's maybe, some of it is participation, but I think a lot of it is getting to be the fiscal side of it.
No, and there have been 5 counties this year that are not renewing contracts, and some have cited the cost. Others have, it's just whether it's low participation, and sometimes there's jails that just aren't in favor or cooperate with the STS program, so it's hard to get those folks.
I think that there was 5 counties this year, there was probably some last year too, because I talked to some people last year, and it kind of surprised me, so then I kind of started looking into it. And then when I saw this, so it would be interesting to know our participation. So, and this is probably too late to do anything now, but I think over the next 2 years as a board, we need to start getting some more information on this and really consider it as something that, and I don't think you disagree with.
I don't. I know this has been a topic on a lot of counties' radar, and it's the cost benefit analysis. I mean, we have to look at that and be honest. And like you said, it's not about Mary Jean. It's about are we getting our bang for a buck? And and speaking to the cost increases, it's so just to speak to that quickly, it's based on the statewide average. So we don't increase it automatically 2.5%. We look at all the state income contract crew leaders we have, and based on the total cost of that, we average that out. So you're getting Mary Jean, who's topped out, but getting her at an average level. So you're getting, you know, if you paid directly for what Mary Jean's worth, this would be higher. So I can speak to that. You know, the insurance increases, I mean, those are some things that, you know, as a county board, you don't have control over because the state, that's this at the state level. So I think it does behoove us to make sure that, you know, our numbers are worth your time, that we keep the program at the highest level we can. So the projects that we have in the community, the cost benefit, the cost savings we see in the community offset the cost, whatever cost increases or total cost that whatsoever for the program. We keep that balance. So I don't disagree with you, Commissioner.
Appreciate that, and you know, I think if we're helping people get through a time and changing their lifestyle, it would be interesting to have, and maybe Andrew, sometime in the future, we have some kind of presentation with some better numbers and stuff as we do planning for the future.
Yeah, and so the board is aware, Mary Jean does provide me with activity reports on a periodic basis. I can start forwarding those as well, so you see
And I
those.
agree with you, last year it can't be counted as, I wish it would go away completely for all of us.
I was curious too, when this came out, and I've written all over it here, I had multiple questions, of which Andrew answered quite a few of them for me yesterday. But the one thing that, of course, I looked at the dollar figure and I thought, $88,000 salary, a full-time person with benefits and retirement, what is the participation to balance something like that out? In my mind, and that's a full-time job every year. Do offenders volunteer for this? Let's say I come in, I've done a boo-boo and I have a $500 fine to pay. I don't have $500. I can participate in this and work off my $500?
Correct.
Is that to the tune of $10 an hour, then paid back to the county,
Correct.
not to the individual?
So it's credited. So the cost of the hours they did is credited towards their fine. So there isn't a financial transaction per se that happens. It's just a credit. So of the hours they did in the tune of $10 per hour. Some are also ordered by the court to complete sentence to serve hours, and also by probation. So we have authority to impose up to 24 hours of STS if there is a technical violation that they commit, and that's per technical violation. So there could be multiple instances where they're ordered or they're to complete. On top of also with the state for supervision fees. So those that commit a felony, so these are the fees that don't go back into the county. These are the fees that go to the state for felony level offenses. Those we can allow clients to work STS off for the $300 supervision fee as well.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious about that. Another thing that I was curious about, I read in their contract here, was that we can't have them doing jobs that would take away from a county current employee. And I would imagine that's maybe a little ticklish to find what positions they can do and that won't take away from another county employee.
So, and I think that's written in a sense that if Mary Jean did strictly parks and did nothing else, we would probably say, well, and it's not so much us telling you what to do, it's just more from a labor management perspective, that we don't want to kind of get into that situation where, you know, if the county says, yeah, we want you working strictly city maintenance, that's all we want STS to do, because we just don't want, we don't want to feel that there's a labor management issue within the county that says we're kind of taking away from a position that could have been held by another person within the county. So it's not necessarily us dictating that. It's just more of a tale of caution that we don't want it to look like we're putting our STS crew leader in that position and supplanting what could have been a county employee. So in looking at what the projects we have here, that wouldn't be the case, because there's such a multitude and range of projects that Mary Jean does. It's just more or less we want to be careful not to feel like we're trying to supplant what could have been a county or another employee.
Hire a lot of seasonal folks, part-time, a lot of parks folks.
It-
Just hired in
yep.
the parks department and.
And frankly, I mean, we have to balance the fiscal piece of things too. Is that, you know, we're not saying you can't use the STS crew leader. She's your crew leader. You know, I always look at it, she's a county crew leader with a contract through the state. So, you know, as far as where the county feels that the best resources are put with her in certain areas, that's a conversation that, you know, throughout any department within the county that best suits whatever project needs to be done.
Would it
So-
ever be possible to attain more funds from the state to offset some of these?
As far as, I can't think of anything aside from, whether the 75-25, renegotiating that or seeing where that might go if we see budgets improve, can we look at, you know, shoring that up to getting back to 50-50 like it used to be 13 years ago, I believe, was when that changed to 75-25.
Ah,
I believe it was 12 years ago. Yeah, it used to be a 50-50 contract, and then it changed to 75-25, and that really, and out of my control. I wasn't a supervisor, I wasn't a legislator, but I mean, obviously that did really hurt a lot of the relationships we had with our county crew leaders and counties.
Does this contract have to be done today?
It needs to be executed by July 1st, before July 1st.
So my question is, would it be possible we have some new commissioners here, and as well as I'm interested in the usage and the cost benefit. And I want you to know I'm a believer in if we can fix somebody, it doesn't happen again. But I'd be interested in repeat offenders and things like that. Would it be possible for us to get more information if we tabled this?
I assume that, Jake, you're able to provide that sort of information involved, how many people we have involved and all of that. And
Yep, yeah, I can pull.
Because as I said, that's 75,000, and we did just hire a full-time.
Yeah, and the other thing that we can do is I can work with Braden to come up with a cost benefit analysis of what it would cost for us to have county staff take on the work that the Sentence to Serve crew is doing.
Well, and
in the
that part's fine, but I would be interested in how many participants, how many are repeating participants? What's the rate of them showing up? There's more to this than, and I know you're not in disagreement with me. And this is not about Mary Jean. I love her. She works harder than anybody on that crew. So, but if nobody would mind, I'd like to table it for that kind of information. Because we have May yet and June, and it has to be signed by July.
So I would just say, as far as tracking those that are repeat, I don't know if I have that, but I will
Whatever you
certainly,
can get.
I'll get you whatever you need, so, I mean, whatever we can drum up as far as our STS reports.
I appreciate
I'll go
that.
back 5 years.
And I agree with you, last year is.
Yeah.
I realize that, so, and are the courts using this as much? Just any information you can get, I would appreciate.
Absolutely.
I was
And I-
curious, 40 hours a week, all year round, 52 weeks a year. Are we working 40 hours a week with offenders? Yeah, I'm curious about some of the additional, how many folks, if you said 2.3 or 2.5 folks a day? Or a
Right,
week,
so-
a day or a week, yeah.
Yep, so keep in mind that if there is no clients, Mary Jean is still working within the community and those
She's
projects.
working.
Yeah,
She's
she's
a
still
hard
working, so whether it's a crew day or it's not a crew day, she does have administrative days with that she enters information into the database. But primarily, if she doesn't have a crew, she's still working within the community, working on the projects that.
And when she works right along with them, so she isn't just sitting in.
Correct.
I mean, so I'm gonna repeat, it's not about Mary Jean
Right.
at all. This is just about our budget. So I would like to make a motion that we table this for further information.
Table or continue?
Continue.
Whatever the word is, continue this for further information. Thank you.
So, do I hear a second? We have a motion to continue discussion on the topic of approving the sentencing to service program. All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Aye.
Oh, I had a
Oh,
question.
an additional question? Okay.
I just wanna, just so we get, I wanna know what hours we'd have to, and Andrew kinda went into this a little bit. I wanna know what hours we'd be having to cover without this program too, so we know what that cost is to get the risk reward.
A complete cost analysis
from
of the
both-
pros and
both.
cons.
Yeah, so I can work on putting that together, and then Jake and I will work together and put together a report for the board.
Alright,
And I mean, you know, there's a lot of things, they shovel out the hydrants. I've seen Mary Jean unload a trailer full of picnic tables by herself at the fairgrounds, so it isn't about that.
And I know City and Valley would like to have her up there more often
I
than
agree.
than she's available. So, I mean, it's sought after too. That I know. for
And
a
if you
fact.
would, when you compile your data, kind of get the offset for 2020, so we can maybe
Yeah.
factor that out.
I'll run the last 5 years and provide that, and you can look at 2020, you can throw it in the garbage, but do what you want with it. But I'll go back, I mean, is 5 years sufficient enough to look back?
Plenty,
Okay.
plenty good.
That'd be good.
That'd be fine, I appreciate it.
Okay.
Any additional questions for Jacob while he's here? Any additional questions? We have the motion. Let's take the vote. All those in favor of waiting until we have a little more information, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We will wait.
Okay.
Thank
I'll
you.
bring you the data.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Paul is next here.
Good morning.
Morning.
It's spring. I'm seeing all the critters. I'm starting to see the birds and everything. The boys and the girls out there doing their thing. So soon we'll have all kinds of babies.
You really been watching.
It's an hour drive. Let me tell you, it's gotta be something to look at.
actually park.
Oh, no, yeah. Well, then they'll think I'm a little odd, so I'll keep moving.
On that note,
Well, this morning I have Ms. Thomas, our Adult Services Supervisor, here to kind of give an update on our Meeker's Cares Committee. Meeker Cares really kind of started off with our understanding at social services and public health about the challenges that COVID is presenting our community, particularly in regards to mental health, emotional health, and folks' well-being. We recognize that this is going to have a significant impact on our community. And so we wanted to get some folks together to kind of start figuring out how we're going to destigmatize the access to support. It's okay to ask for help when you need it, but also to communicate all of the various areas where a person can receive assistance and to ensure that there is no wrong door to help. And so in partnership with Public Health, the Veterans Service Office, and a number of other community organizations, Meeker's Cares came forward and we were able to ask for some funds through the CARES Act, where they received a $17,000 fund to be able to start promoting and creating an advertisement campaign. They've worked on a commercial for TV that they've been able to roll out to different stations, working for signage on some of our CCT buses and in our community, as an example, at our convenience stores, etc. We have seen some very positive results from that partnership, just by the partnership happening. And so I will let Pat talk about those sorts of things. Right now, what we're really focusing on is sustainability of that message. We recognize that mental health, emotional health, because of COVID, but also just other reasons, is something that's significantly going to be in our world going forward. And so the sustainability of those messages, we don't want to just be a flash in the pan. We want to make sure that it's out there so that if folks come into contact with our messaging, they might be able to remember if they're in distress, that phone number or where to reach out and get assistance. Through the course of last year, our partnership with Woodland Centers, they had furloughed some of their workers and so did not access some of our consumer support funds that we received from a grant from the Department of Human Services. And you may recall me saying this. So we have approximately $30,000 that carries over. This is not county dollars, this is state dollars. And it is very prescriptive on how we can access and use those dollars. Fortunately enough, the charter for Meeker's Cares fits within one of those program codes for us to utilize those funds. And so we're looking to, again, be able to carry that message forward and create a sustainable platform for those folks in our community to be able to know where they can receive help. So as far as what the Meeker Cares Committee is actually doing, I will turn it over to Pat.
Well, so I'm Pat Thomas from one of the supervisors, and I would agree, Beth. I wish 2020 didn't happen.
That's for sure.
There were many things that we saw, and we saw our folks, our clients, our consumers struggling. The isolation, for those folks that wanted to isolate, they thought it was great, but it wasn't healthy for them. And so when Paul talks about emotional well-being, yep, we needed to look at how can we move that forward? How do we keep people moving ahead? But it had to be more than just social services and public health trying to update our resource guides. It had to be more than that. And so we looked at how do we broaden that? How do we bring in other partners, other folks that can help us get that message forward? CARES Act dollars, like Paul mentioned, was fantastic. On the internet, on the radio, in the papers, doing all of those kinds of things to just get that information out there for folks. We've developed a community leadership team that consists of several county agencies, social services, public health, law enforcement, county attorney's office. We've brought in Safe Avenues, Veteran Services, Woodland Centers. We have schools, Ministerial Association, Southwest Initiative Foundation, Bridgewater College. So we have a multitude of people. It's not just about Litchfield. It's about our county and our communities as a whole. We're also looking to bring in some of the folks that are working more specifically with our geriatric population, because we're seeing those numbers increase, the awareness of our elderly folks that, and Amy Inglet can speak more to that, but the amount of information that we're getting, chemical usage and our elderly population that is skyrocketing. And how do we address that? What do we do with that? So this group has pulled together, trying to come up with ideas. How do we reduce the stigma? How do we get the information out there? And how do we move it forward so that it does continue? You know, when the pandemic first started, if you recall, there were all of those things, the hearts in the windows, the teddy bears in the windows, people were putting them up as just a sense of community. We have a project going now called Seeds of Hope, which is a plant, and as well as messaging about what are those resources that are available to folks, not just for mental health, but for chemical use, financial things, medical things, domestic violence, all of those resources, and we do have it on the county website. If you click on the mental health tab, up in the corner it says,
for helping us with that.
yes, that was awesome to get that out there. And there is a full page with all kinds of resources that people can access. Our hope is to continue moving this forward to not just address mental health, but to move that beyond. Maybe we need to assist some way with housing sustainability. How do we partner with those folks? Our daycare, we do have a community group that already has addressed some of the child care issues and the lack of that in our county. How do we partner with them to keep that moving forward? So that's our hope. Still in the early stages of this. We hope next month to start a series of just some 1 hour speaking things for folks where they can tap in on a Zoom link. We've got 3 speakers lined up already to do some presentations about the importance of mental health. Mental health in the workplace, what does that look like? How do employers and employees manage that? Just some of those nutritional things. How do we keep ourselves healthy, physically healthy? Because if we don't have that going on, we know our mental health is gonna struggle even more. So just looking at a variety of topics that we hope will be of interest to folks. Short blips, you know, an hour, probably over a lunch hour or something, so that's our hope.
Where
That's
are
our
you
plan.
located? Where is, if I'm looking for help, assistance, is the CARES a one-stop shop? You can line me up with housing, you can line me up with nutrition, you can line me up with daycare, you could.
It's not a program like that. What it is it's working with a multitude of programs. So let's say you went to the thrift store and you were buying something, you were talking with the person at the counter there, and you were saying, oh, I'm having some challenges. That person would have the information to be able to direct you where to go, or would assist you in accessing that help. So it's really getting the word out to these points of contact that they're aware of all of what we have going on in our community, the various vendors and such, and will be able to assist you to get you where you need to go as an individual. So it's more of a coordination type event other than not just a service, because we have a host of services that we're already offering. And so I like to look at it as we have a matrix of a number of services, and the challenge is that oftentimes those services are in a silo. They do that service. They may not know that this individual also has other potential issues, or they know that, but they might not know where to get that person to get those particular needs met. This is intending to create that conduit, that free flow of information for folks, and really to get the word out to the general public and work, as I said, to destigmatize asking for help. One of the wonderful things that when I first started working here at Meeker County was the benevolence of our community and the willingness of the community to step forward and assist those in need. However, the challenge with that is maybe have 3 people doing the same thing. This is helping them better utilize their resources, saying, oh, this is what I do, but you do this, okay, great, I don't have to do that, but I can work with you to serve this person this way. Oh yeah, I can work with you to serve this person this way. And so it really stretches that charitable dollar, that charitable effort, per se, in our community so that there's not duplication. There's enough need out there for people that need assistance. Meeker County has enough support services to be able to offer that assistance, from medical to social to spiritual. But it really is a testament when you look at the number of people and the number of different organizations that are participating in Meeker Cares. It really speaks volumes to me that the community is really together, and I think it's something that really should be applauded. I look forward to seeing where they go in the future. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next order of business I have before you is our accounts payable. I must apologize, we did have some challenges with getting the information to you. We had some technological changes in, I think, the auditor's office or the treasurer's office. So it didn't fully read our information out of SSIS, so it might be challenging. I don't know, when I looked at the reports, I know they look significantly different. I don't know what they sent to you.
I like the way the one looks, really. It's easy, much easier to, I was hoping they'd all be like that. So
But it did,
I was
yeah.
impressed with that one. Can we do them all that way?
Okay, so Barb knocked it out of the park. Way to go, Barb.
Yeah.
I didn't get to see that one.
Stuff that I
It was
said,
just
go
easy,
for it.
it was a lot easier to read.
Yeah,
I
it
thought.
was.
Agree?
I think that was the intent of the whole program, was it
Oh,
not?
absolutely.
But it only came through on the one, so whatever.
Oh, maybe expand that.
I don't know, was it a diversion tactic? This was-
I was up in my head trying to figure out, what are they gonna ask me this time, but.
Actually, this
it-
is clear, so you should have more questions.
Well,
It was kind
just
of-
again to reiterate, I do appreciate your questions, so.
So I think, I'll make a motion, we, pass the, where are we here? Accounts payable for social service.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve social service accounts payable. Do we have any further discussion?
I have, I'm sorry, I have a question, and I know I've asked this before, I'm gonna write it down. Harmony Visitation is where they visit.
So what that is that's a program where, when we have, children that are not with their parents for protective reasons, we still have reasonable, efforts to reunify those parents. And part of that reunification process is to ensure that there is actual contact with parents and children. But there is a need for supervision to ensure the safety of the children.
So is that we paid for the person that comes in and supervises
Yes.
the visitation?
And so this is an area that we've been talking with the building committee over at the Family Services Center. And we have some ideas, and we're just kind of waiting to see where the county is at. But we would like to have some visitation located here. We use Harmony, which is their facility is located in Wilmer. We're also using some of our staff for visitation. We have developed a family room in social services, but that's a lot more expensive than contracting out for visitation services. We also use an organization called Painted Pony to do some visitation, and they come out of Hutchinson. They will come into our building and provide that visitation as well. But it is a real important component of our child protection area.
I thought that's what it was, but, so, yeah, thank you. And then the other thing is, are our out-of-home placements going up or down, or am I just noticing more because of this new format?
Kind of going up.
I was afraid of that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's challenging. It's challenging. We're getting a lot more reports, but we're doing, I think, a better job of determining when the risk level of the situation that is presented to us requires out-of-home placement. And we're also focusing a lot more on family placements and keeping kids with families. But it's still county dollars that
I
pays
think
for
we're
that.
gonna see, I think I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop here from COVID. I think we're gonna have a rough year coming up here, but I hope.
We are seeing that in particular, not in out-of-home placements, but in a number of
Just mental
reports we're
health
seeing.
care.
Mental health care, children's mental health, we're seeing a fair amount more of the truancy type things, which has been a very challenging thing for us to address this past year with distance learning. It's been very challenging for our schools as well to attend to truancy and actually know if a child is truant and so I'm waiting for it all to kind of settle down a little bit, but we're not quite through the pandemic yet.
Thank you.
I think you're
I
gonna,
won't ask that question again now.
Oh, you keep asking, because I think it's a good question for us to continue to
I
discuss.
thought it was.
We are going to be looking to do a board report on child protection that's gonna have some of the numbers, and I believe we're looking at June. It's just taking us some time to really look at the performance measures that we receive from the Department of Human Services, as well as some of the initiatives we have on the ground. And we're busy, so I've gotta kind of peel out time for all of this, but we want you all to be very well informed of what's occurring.
Oh, you listen to the radio, the police report, the sheriff's report, it's child neglect situation, it's,
and I think you're, like, from a healthcare standpoint in general too, I mean, elderly didn't go to the doctor, I mean, we're seeing some severe illnesses that people let go too long, I mean, there's, the fallout from this is
Well, in the isolation.
on health in general, and that affects kids and elderly and parents and everybody in between, so.
Yeah, that really speaks to the isolation. You know, one of the things that Pat said, we're focusing on our elderly folks, not to move away from child
No.
protection. But if you look at our elderly folks, they were immediately put in a jail cell. Right, either in their homes or in their apartments or wherever, and their contact with the outside world almost stopped for a whole year until maybe they were vaccinated or their loved ones were vaccinated, or right, and so that's going to have an impact. And our elderly people are significant supports for our children.
That's
You know,
right.
that familial connection. So, yeah, it's going to ripple.
I just have one quick question. I realize that when someone dies and they have no one left, we pay for the funeral.
Yes.
You know, it's just a simple cremation and, you know.
Yes. Unless there are religious reasons or specific, I don't recall exactly what various reasons are that we may look to do something else. And we've looked at this a number of times, and we're about as cheap as we can get. And I don't mean to be cheap, I should say, we're about as cost effective as we can get, yes.
That's a better word.
Yes, yes, but you know, we wanna make sure that our folks still have a dignified last, right? We have a good partnership with a local funeral home, that actually the cost includes a plot. So, yeah, and for the most part, it is cremation, unless there are some other reasons.
It wasn't so much the cost. I just thought, you know, if you live long enough, you outlive all your friends and all your brothers and sisters and stuff, and you may not have anybody left, you know?
Yes.
It's just a sad thought to think that somebody dies, there's absolutely nobody left.
Well, I don't know if it's that so much, but it's not their responsibility if they don't wanna take it to bury you, whether, right?
Yeah.
Your grandmother could pass away, and if you don't wanna take on the responsibility and they had nothing, then it's our responsibility to bury them with some dignity, obviously. So.
We do a fairly good job, and this is an area that we're also paying attention to, is our estate recoveries. And so even we may pick up the cost of the burial, but that is until the estate is liquidated, the house is sold, those sorts of things. And then we do recapture those dollars.
They've been in the nursing home, or they work, and every once in a while you'll see money that comes in. But sometimes people just live from month to month and they have no money for burial, and that's just how it is.
Well, and that's a real thing, and it's good, because we're living longer as a society, but we're outliving our retirement pensions or our retirement funds. And a lot of these folks, for the most part, have played the life game well, right? And they are responsible individuals. It's just that they've outlived their resources, which is great, but that does occur more often than not.
Any other questions or comments for Paul? We have a motion, and shall we take the vote? All those in favor of approving the accounts payable here, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Hi, Barb. Morning.
No, it's been good discussion,
Okay, good morning, Commissioners. Barb Block, County Auditor. The first item I have is to approve an off-highway vehicle grant agreement. And I think I'll go into just a little bit of detail on that. I know I put it in the request for action and you probably had a chance to read it. Meeker County, along with the Crow River Wheeler Club, has worked in partnership for this recreational trail program since 2012. And I just, as I was waiting here, added up the total amount of grant money, and they're in excess of $300,000 that have come through for the development, the easements, the different facets since 2012 to put this park in place. The state of Minnesota has this money available through the Minnesota Trails Assistance Program, and it's for purposes like this, where the off-highway vehicle or all-terrain vehicles can have a safe place. And Meeker County can harmonize with our visitors on keeping a recreational place for them. So to continue this, the DNR does have the Trails Assistance Program, which is we're in now rather than in the construct and establish. And so each year I come before you and ask that the county continues to sponsor, because the Crow River Wheeler Club cannot dip into this on their own. They need a sponsor, a government sponsor. This year, fortunately for them, they're gonna get approximately $3,000 more, so their amount is $10,463. And if you ever have a chance to reach out, Paul Cruz from the Cedar Mills, Cosmos area, is the coordinator at this point. He does an excellent job to provide the paperwork timely and then receive the funds. So there's a little bit of bookkeeping that comes in from them. I merely put my signature on it, send it off to the state, the check comes back, we cut a check to them. So our relationship in this is very minimal. And I did have Brandy look at the contract. The only changes in the contract were items 23, 24, and 25, where they actually added a little bit of information on conflict for interest and also some COVID-19 situations. So I'm asking that you approve their assistance request and grant both Julie and I the permission to sign and go forward.
This is the one on County Road 9, isn't it?
Right, it's
Just south of my house.
and south.
Yeah.
Very nice park.
Is it a county park?
No,
Or is this a
it's
separate?
not part of the county parks. It is a club
Club,
park,
yes.
Okay, so,
but it's open to the public.
Yeah, and there is a
And-
membership
right.
that you can pay also.
okay, so our parks budget does not,
No, this
is
is
not affected
totally
by
outside
this,
of
is
parks.
outside of,
That's correct.
okay,
So it's like a sportsman's club or a,
sure.
separate entity, okay.
I just think it's rewarding to see what we've been able to do for them and to provide for them.
I would make a motion, we approve the off-highway vehicle grant agreement.
We have a motion, do I hear a second?
Second that motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve the vehicle grant, off-highway vehicle grant. Any further discussion or questions for Barb? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is the payables, and I think you already saw that they came to you just a little bit different in one situation. We moved to a hosted server 2 weekends ago, and the fallout of that hosted server were all of the unique holes or direct accesses that had to speak back and forth. So we had to get access for SSIS and social welfare and financial and et cetera, and et cetera. And each of those was a step on the way. Although we practiced and tested for about 6 weeks, there were still a few that were not identified in that testing process that needed to communicate back and forth. And SSIS is one that works with a state level, social services, county, and it speaks back and forth. That one is not totally functional, even as I speak it today. They're working on it. So going forward, whether that would be the format,
I like that
we
format.
worked hard to get that
I
to get
like
to
that.
you.
You could keep doing
because-
that. I wish we could do it with all of
Right,
them.
I said to her, I said, we need to get something to the commissioners, and
Appreciate
what it
that.
is it was an Excel format that redacted rather than a reading format of PDF.
For me, it was much quicker to go through and
Sure.
glance at. So
And
if
it's
we-
possible that we could do Excels for some of the others I'd have to look at, but that's what we finally came to the resolution on their side to get something to you that was worthwhile so we could get the approval and yet not hold up any system. So that's why you saw those two look different. And they were both the
It was readable.
confidential side and the other side of social services.
Even as a redacted Excel, if you went back, you thought you saw something, you could search.
Yes,
You can't do that in a
Sure.
PDF very easily.
right. And I believe that all of our payables could be converted to a Excel. We use Excel and I can work with Andrew and show him, we can look at that a little
I
bit.
hope down the line we can do that. At
Right.
least for me, it was easier.
Yeah.
What gives it so much more capability?
Right, so that's why you got the one Excel, as we worked with social services to say, let's find some way that we could provide that. So with that being said, the payables were all presented as we normally do today.
All right,
Did we have a motion? I make a motion to approve the county and hospital accounts payable.
We have a motion, do I hear a second?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Okay, we have a motion, has been seconded to approve county and hospital accounts payable. Is there any additional discussion for Barb? Any questions? Then we'll take the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Barb. Now I would like to recess the county board meeting, and I would like to convene as the county ditch authority. And Barb, you will make your presentation, please.
Chris, I'm asking for the board to set an informational meeting for County Ditch 17 and 19 for the purpose of bringing the landowners or potential landowners that may have a concern with the redetermination of benefits and the likely or possible benefits and damages that have changed since this was set up in 1904. It is likely that there are lands draining into the system that are not participating in maintenance currently. And those corrective procedures are first to do an informational meeting, bring together the attorney for the process, bring together a viewer for how redeterminations are done. And then in turn, it will be up to the commissioners to determine if there is the feedback or order a determination and move forward, directing the county, directing John, directing myself on what major repairs and expenses you want to see done immediately, what needs to be pushed back, and if there truly is property that should be brought in. So I have set that meeting for the Litchfield Civic Arena, and indicating that we could have 10 or we could have 50, and we can social distance very well there. Their community room is available. And I have set that for May 17th at 5 p.m. I think almost all of you said that was workable or could be workable. So that's what I'm asking you to do, is to set that informational meeting for that day.
I make a motion to set the informational meeting for County Ditches 17 and 19 for May 17th, 2021, 5 o'clock at the Litchfield Civic Arena Community Room 900 Northfield, Litchfield.
We have a motion, do I hear a second?
I will second that.
We have a motion and it has been seconded. Is there any discussion?
One question, and it's really got nothing to do with this, but when we do a redetermination, remind me again, how expensive is that for?
It will all depend upon the acreage and the amount of time that they spend. And that's one of the items that will be brought up here to give those landowners, as we're spending their money, not county money, an idea of the amount of expense that this could be and the entire process. As you know, we had a horrible one between Meeker Candy, and we've had others that are 50, 60,000. Sometimes they quote less. I don't have a quote on this one. I asked Ron, and he did not want to prejudge it.
So the Meeker Candy one went on for years.
For years.
$266,000.
That's what happens
Attorney
when-
fees.
It's like a bad divorce, attorneys get rich and
Well, and we had a bad one here in Meeker County with a particular system south of Litchfield and west that really went very expensive too, because they had asked for a redetermination, the board went ahead, redetermined, and it got all the way to me testifying before the judge in level 5. So they can get ugly, they can go very smooth, it all depends upon who and what mindset they have with regard to the benefits and the damages. Most of the time, our advisors are to do informational meetings, bring everyone on board so we all know the process. And then, is that gonna curb litigation? Probably not, but at least we all know what's going to happen as the steps go on. So that's what we have set up for that.
Are county dollars used to clean out ditches?
No,
It's all property
It-
owner dollars.
when we are required to do a county ditch or a judicial ditch, we are required to pull all those dollars together and bring them back as an assessment to that system. And that's why these benefits are so critical for us to have correct, because you may not wanna pay for my property that should likely have been included, and in this case, we wanna say 1904, but it doesn't look the same today. Maybe there's tiling in, private tile in, maybe there are a different philosophy, which we know since the early 1900 on how they view what can be made into agricultural production land and what likely can stay swamp no matter how much you drain, and how we contribute to an agricultural value to that. And that's what the redetermination does, it puts an agricultural value to it. You may still need it if you have a home, because you may not drive up your driveway if the water goes over your road. So everyone is looked at based on the proximity and the need for drainage with a system. Or where you're contributing water also.
Now, will an actual letter be sent to all of the landowners along 19 and 17?
Correct. So with you setting this informational meeting, that puts John and I in a position to notify by newspaper ads. We'll put it on our county webpage. We will mail to the current benefit owners. And that hopefully will pick up with the newspaper and word of mouth, those that could likely be affected, but not on the benefits set today. So we'll do the best we can to initiate outreach. Will we reach everyone? Probably not. But once it gets redetermined, if that's the choice you go, they will be reached at that point and say, you know, you're a contributing factor to the drainage of the system, your water is going here, and you now will be helping with the maintenance, and here's your percentage. But that's what will be brought up at the informational meeting to give everyone those steps that will happen. Usually it takes a year to 18 months because they look at a somewhat of a year of what happens with water and some other processes, so this could be as much as 12 months out before it was finalized, if you do choose to redetermine and set that in motion your first meeting in June. Because that would be the first time you would have an opportunity to set it.
Barb, does a lot of that redetermination actually become from land that isn't adjacent to the ditch, that is hooked by tile, that's not hooked? Is that where you really get into the crux of the problem, where they weren't part of that ditch necessarily, but now their tile is hooked to it? Is that?
I think that's one of the things the viewers will elaborate on and say these are people that are definitely benefiting from an outlet to their private ditch into the public system, and the water is moving away. And they do then either get an outlet fee or they get assessed. When we see judicial ditches, 52, I think there was 7 or 9 systems that are outletting into that system that now get prorated a portion of that particular expense. So the answer is both ways.
Because I mean, I'm sure at 1904, it's just everything adjacent to the ditch. Now other landowners are saying, okay, his tile goes into here and cuts into here, so he should have part of it too. Is that usually the redetermination? I'm just curious in terms of
and even surface water. I mean, even if
Sure.
your land all falls that way, but you don't own any of the ditch, your water still goes to that system. So I mean, that's, in 116 years, you can see where
And when Greg was here, he has an issue with the fact that Lake Ripley is an outlet onto this ditch. And of course, in 1904, nobody lived on Lake Ripley. Well, now, there are a lot of folks with some beautiful homes
And that likely will be
expensive properties.
That likely will be encompassed. We don't know that today. We don't know which way the viewers determine where that water is. The other thing with the redetermination is that we have never, in these two systems, paid for that buffer. And in every redetermination since 1983, when we redetermine, we need to make compensation for the buffer strip, for that easement and for that lack of them being able to put their highest crop right next and up to the ditch. So we will be paying for buffer, and in some cases that's as expensive as a redetermination because of the land that you're taking out of production that could likely be quality land that was in the A group rather than grassland in the C group. So those things will be covered by either Kale or Ron Rehnquist at the informational meeting, so people are made aware. And you bring up Lake Ripley, I believe there will be a campaign to let those people know that they could likely want to lend an ear to what's going to happen. I will reach out to the association.
So
To get
you're
them involved.
anticipating this to be a well-attended meeting?
You never know. Sometimes we anticipate and we get 10, and sometimes we anticipate and we get a room full.
I was curious, now you did send me a copy of the actual landowners around both ditches. I didn't count them up.
It's very few.
Yep, not a lot of landowners along both ditches.
Currently paying into the maintenance.
How is it determined when a ditch needs to be cleaned out? Who
John can talk to that. in a
makes
few
that call?
minutes. John will talk about that. He has a system.
Yeah, some of what determines if it needs to be cleaned out is, you know, if there's sediment buildup, and generally what the indicator is there'll be some sediment building up on this side, and then that'll start pushing the water to the other side, starting to cause erosion, stuff like that. Otherwise, you know, some of our ditches haven't had tree removals done in a long time. There's down debris laying in the bottom of the ditch, and that's where it catches, and again, causing some of the same issues. So sometimes doing the cleanouts is just to keep the water flowing the correct direction instead of going into the ditch bank itself, causing other erosion issues. So it's, and then some of it's, you know, if you have a little drier year with sediment in there, all of a sudden vegetation starts growing, and then the following year, the sediment catches up in all that vegetation and just builds up even quicker. So it's,
Every year on a person's tax statement, is there a fee for maintenance of these, or does it only happen when a service is done to the ditch that the person is assessed for the cost?
We assess all of our ditches 100% across the board for John's time and any administrative time. And we take and prorate that according to the hours spent specifically on the system or overall, so that we can account for all of those dollars. We do that in November. So when you say, is it on my tax statement, we give an opportunity for taxpayers to prepay that, just like a bill to them, rather than affecting their escrow and affecting their tax payments, because that's an expense form, not that their taxes isn't, but then many of them, and that's where I had reported before, in excess of 70% paid in advance from the advance bill. The remaining go on to the tax statements. There's also those larger ones like 52 where it can be divided into numerous years, and they get 3 to 4 to 5 or even 7 years of opportunity to pay it as part of their taxes. So it's like a loan payment twice a year, or at any time they can also choose to pay that off, and we see that because they don't want to accrue interest. We see landowners, especially active farmers, want that in their expenses and want it to be part of their production costs, or if they're renting their land, they'll call us and say what's pending, because this may likely affect their thinking with their rent.
But I could own a piece of property for 40 or 50 years and never even realize that I'm on a ditch until they come to clean it out or there's an expense, and then I would receive the bill.
There are a few very inactive ones, and in the last 5 years, trust me, I think everyone knows they're on a system. But before that, there were some situations like that we hadn't done work for quite a while.
And I think it's important too to understand that a property owner can petition to have a ditch cleaned. Just one landowner on that system can petition to get that ditch cleaned, and we have to answer that petition. I mean, somebody has to, the system has to answer that petition, and that initiates kind of where we're going on 17 and 19. You know, once you initiate that process, then you get the ball rolling as to determinations and these things. So, I mean, that's, anybody can petition to get a ditch cleaned.
How about if I go out and clean it out myself?
There's some people that do that, and John likes them when they contact him so that they don't do anything illegal, because we have people dip too wide, dip too low, or choose to do what they wish. But many of our landowners, especially some of our farmers, have equipment and have the wherewithal, and also are a whole lot more diligent on their own property than sometimes bringing in a contractor. But we have a process, and I don't know, I was going to ask earlier, have you all seen the county ditch policy? Maybe I should send that to you, because it's really clearly laid out in there what a landowner is asked to do to contact our inspectors so that we can help avoid cease and assist, DNR, Army Corps, any of those horrible things that can happen by doing something that is outside of the scope of what you would think is just dipping a little bit of dirt out.
And I think, and maybe I'm wrong, but there's been some disputes, but most of the time they all wanna get along and keep the ditch working. Clear for everyone, for the, you know, it's a plus for everyone. They don't always, I've had a couple calls and I don't have much ditch area about a determination that one year everybody's won. But you know what, it went pretty smoothly overall and they get past it because it's beneficial for them.
Most often when we have someone do, as in the situation we have with 17 and 19, they work with our office a fair amount to be sure that what they're asking for is what they want to ask for.
And I think neighbors call neighbors when there's issues with John, so, you know, I don't think it always has to be oppositional.
No, and I'm hoping when we bring everyone together and we have a nice presentation and it educates the board so that you understand the process. I'm new to some of you that are going through a redetermination, and also these landowners know what we're doing and seeing their property and understand the fairness that comes out of it. I worked with a gentleman yesterday, the fairness of it, I think it will be a win-win situation. That's what I'm hoping.
I think knowledge is power, and I didn't understand a thing about ditches. And then Barb educated me some, and I mean, one guy called me up and he ranted for a while on the phone. And I said, well, how much are they charging you? And it was under $100. So, you know, and I had people that were paying thousands, so, you know, it can go either way.
True. To what you're saying, that we tend to have a long conversation with those that are not agriculturally needing
That's,
this
I think,
particular
what it was,
ditch.
and
And
I was renting the property out and.
Right. I think John and I can both allude to spending way more time with those that get this, that are absent landowners or just love their little duck pond or
Exactly.
whatever. And it's not, the education really is the piece.
So, best case scenario in something like this is if the folks that are adjacent to this and affected by it would be there, because I have to assume, just seeing Cale and a few presentations that I've seen, that he must put on a pretty good presentation and really thoroughly answer questions.
Yep. Both Ron and Cale will give you a tremendous education on
Yeah.
the system when we do this. And then Cale is scheduled, I think I sent that out to you, to do a ditch 101 for the county board.
June.
And I think we're going to limit him to 2 hours because I think he could keep you considerably longer.
Yes, you are going to.
Mr. Schmidt has asked for your presentation to be 2 hours.
You can tell him I said.
No, because he will, he's passionate about it and he has so much information that my thought is that your behind can only handle what.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we'll go with that.
Right.
So if you'd set that informational meeting for us, I believe you were at the
We
point of
have
voting on
the
that.
motion, it has been seconded, we've engaged in discussion, is there any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, we'll take the vote, all those in favor of the informational meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Good morning, John Condon, Meeker County Ditch Inspector. The item I bring to you this morning is regarding approval of a quote for some erosion repairs and a ditch clean out on County Ditch 35. County Ditch 35 is located in Darwin Township. It's just east of town here, probably only about 4 miles. And during inspection, towards the outlet end, I found multiple washouts that were occurring where there's water running over the banks. And we are planning to install some drop inlet structures in these areas. Basically what it is just a piece of tile that goes down, makes 90 degree and puts it in the ditch. And then we're planning to fill some of these back in with soil so that when we fill it in, basically the edge of the ditch bank will be higher than what the inlet structure will be, so that the water is forced to go through the pipe instead of washing out over the bank. And then also we'll be installing a little bit of rock around these pipes just to help ensure good stabilization is there. The section of ditch on the map shown here up on the screen, is proposed to be cleaned out. The average sediment is from 12 to about 18 inches. The further south you go, I would say between 260th and 268 has about an average of 18 inches, just because it's been that long. And that was a section we recently did tree removal on, so that was another section where there's a bunch of down trees and stuff laying in the bottom. That's why there's more sediment there. So I sent out a time and materials request for quote out to 6 contractors. I received 3 quotes back. Low quote was from Reichert Excavating for $19,140. Being we're bringing in a fair amount of soil and using some extra material like rock and stuff like that, I'm recommending we add a 20% contingency on top of their quote, just because the estimated soil and rock is an estimate. There's a potential it may need more. I'd prefer to have the ability to add a little more, make sure it's done right versus just skimping and going with that. So that's why I'm recommending a 20% contingency on top of that. Are there any questions regarding that? So then I'm looking for a motion to approve the quote from Reichert Excavating for the erosion repairs and ditch cleaning, along with that 20% contingency on top of it, for a total amount of $22,968.
Make a motion that we hire Rickard Excavating for the repairs and ditch cleaning on County Ditch 35.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
We have a motion. Is there any additional discussion? I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Explain contingency to me. If we approve the quote,
Mm-hmm.
but it comes in above, then now that's been included here, so we would have to fund that. And where do those funds all come out?
It would still be paid by the ditch system.
Okay. And if not, then the folks are just not charged for that.
Correct, yep.
Okay.
And yeah, this is a time and materials quote, so if it only takes what's needed, then we'll only be invoiced for the 140. But if we're out there determining it, because like I said, the soil amount's an estimate, all of a sudden we need 4 more loads of soil, well, there's another additional about $1,000, so it's,
sure.
That's why I wanted that contingency on there, just to make sure that we're good so that we can do the job right instead of skimping on it potentially, so.
Thank you.
Is it really gonna take till December 31st of 2022?
That's,
I thought that was an error when I first looked.
No, I put a deadline on there because one of the.
That's a long time.
No, they'll most likely get it done this year, but I put a deadline on there because one of the old contracts when I first started here, the contractor's just ending that now, and it was almost a 3-year-old
Oh, wow.
contract. But there was no deadline or anything, so that's why
Well, that's a good deadline.
I generally put a 1.5 to 2 year.
That was a mistake.
No, I've been putting deadlines on there
Sure,
just for that
okay,
reason.
good. I
Oh,
mean,
weather.
the time.
Otherwise they.
Weather, different things too, if
Yep.
something, you know,
Yeah, cause all of a sudden it could be a really wet year and they can't get out there.
Sure,
do a good
Not till
job.
next
So I-
year, but,
but we're thinking it will be done.
yep.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Comments? If not, we'll take the vote. All those in favor of the quote for the erosion repair, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I believe at this point we can adjourn the County Ditch Authority Board and reconvene as the county board. We have Andrew.
Yes, so, in your packet, we have the monthly fund cash balance, report. Additionally, I do have a report on a number of things that have happened over the past, couple of weeks. First off, we had a meeting of the Courthouse Security Committee and are at the point where we want to have a meeting with the full county board to talk about potential facility improvements and some options that the committee has discussed. So, with the board's consent, we would like to schedule a special work session for that because our next couple of work sessions have a number of things on those agendas, and we feel this is a topic that's going to take a lot of time. And so, unless the board has any concerns about scheduling a special meeting, I will ask Corey to work with all of you to set up a date for that.
So you wanna have it as a work session?
Yes.
Because this is, concerning some of the security things and things that we discussed from the marshal's report, should it be an open session?
Well, I think that the specific security issues are not necessarily the portions that we're discussing. We're not going to go through the report again, but we are aware of what those issues are. And now what we're talking about is the potential improvements, which I feel are probably appropriate for a public session, public meeting.
Yep.
Then I will ask Corey to reach out to all of you to schedule that. Next, we have the American Rescue Plan Act, as we all know, has money that's going to be coming towards the county. Had a call with MACA last week where we learned that the U.S. Treasury Department is nearing the point where they will be issuing their guidelines on how those funds can be spent. And we are expecting that to be released next week. So once we have that, I'll be working with our committee to schedule a time that we can get together and start hammering out how we want to go forward with that.
And what about the townships? Any word when they're gonna be able to apply for their funding?
We imagine that will come at the same time as the guidelines from Treasury. Fortunately, Treasury is establishing an office for state, local, and tribal aid. So they will have folks who are specifically related to that part of the act who will be able to help provide guidance and put together those guidelines for it. So once we see what that all looks like, hopefully next week, we can help communicate some of that information to the townships as well, and the cities.
But they've already told us how much money we're getting, but they haven't put out the guidelines.
There's an estimate for how much that NACO has put together, because it's based on population. So we already know what populations are, we know what the total dollar amount is, and so that's how we know where the estimated dollar amount comes from.
I find it fascinating that it doesn't go by the need, it goes by the population.
Yeah, which is, I believe, the same way that CARES was done.
It did, but I found that fascinating too, because then they, whatever, okay, good.
The need is for votes.
Did you say that a little?
I said the need is for votes.
I understand.
Next, I received a call late last week from a real estate agent who has a client who's interested in our vacant property that we own at 701 and 711 Sibley, which, as the county board is aware, we purchased with the intention of potentially building a facility on, and I believe have since made the decision that we are not going to pursue that route. So, question that I want to ask the board is there any interest in potentially putting this property up for sale? If we do so, there's a process that we need to follow that the county attorney and I will work through. Is this something that we would like to discuss further at maybe next week's work session?
I think we should have the discussion, however, Steve, I thought we already made a motion to sell that property. We certainly had a discussion about it.
Yeah, I don't think,
All the members of the board thought it was a good idea. Do you think we never,
I don't know if there was a motion. I know the conversation was had. I'm perfectly fine with selling it at this point.
I think it's certainly, we should have a work session discussion so we can follow up on the other people we talked to about it and see if we have any further information on the bank too.
So what we can do is we will add this to next week's work session agenda, and we can talk about it at that time, get direction from the.
Because I know it was a 5-0 vote with the old board that we had weren't gonna have a use for the, well, maybe it wasn't a vote. The
I don't
consensus
remember
was- I believe
action,
the
but-
consensus was to sell it, so.
Well, and when I came on, we were still, I mean, the topic was a $12 million project over there, and that was a no. So, I mean,
So, yeah, I think we could bring it up and
Yeah,
then we can
yeah.
get into the other part of things that we talked about too. Right, and then maybe we'll have some options as to how you go about what we have to do. If we sell it to somebody else through a realtor, if we have a swap for property or whatever, Brandy will be able to clarify that for us.
And so maybe the more appropriate time to discuss it is when we're talking about the other facility improvements, so we can do that. So we'll do that as part of that other meeting.
If we have a buyer, though, we don't wanna lose them, so you'll let the realtor know.
Yeah, I already let them know that we would have to go through a process and it would take
Okay.
several weeks for us to do so.
Good.
Okay.
Solid.
Next, I know you've all noticed that on our agenda, we consistently have a list of committee vacancies. And so in an effort to try and get more information out about those vacancies, Corey and I have reached out to our local media to try and get stories about this. So you should see an article in the Independent Review this week highlighting the fact that we have committee openings and we're looking for volunteers. And then I'm going to go on Newsmaker next Wednesday to highlight it on the radio. So hopefully we'll get some more.
Good idea.
Very good.
And then lastly, I'm sure you've all seen the emails from Mary about our Know Before training, our cybersecurity training. Just a reminder to complete that. I do get notified if you do not, so there's a watching eye.
Last time I did all 6 of them at one sitting, so you know I was behind.
Yeah, they're fairly quick. They're pretty good.
Way to
So.
go.
And that completes my report.
And we did receive a little email from Mary. There are some rascals out there. We have to be very cautious. Don't click on anything with your technology because they're out fishing, as they call it. Yep. Any additional questions for Andrew? I'm glad to see that there will be more of a push to make people aware of the opportunities to serve on some of these committees. That would be good to get those completed. At this time, I'm going to close our session so that we can discuss negotiations. So the meeting is closed as of now.
Do we want to do the board commissioner updates?
Oh, sure enough, there is that little committee reports. Who would like to begin today? We've started with District 1, we've started with District 5. You wanna start in the middle?
Now she's pointing at me.
Yeah.
I don't see this as the middle.
That's the middle.
Well, 3 is
Number
exactly the
three.
middle, 1 to 5, but not a math major.
All right, I'll be happy to start.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
First meeting was CCT. One of the concerns there has been that the fleet is aging. They usually roll those buses out at about 175,000 miles on them. But they haven't been able to get any replacements. So a lot of the buses now have 300 to 350,000 on them. And Beth, correct me if I'm wrong, we're replacing the motor too for about $7,000.
Yes, and we've done that in the past, so they have one on some backups.
So, they haven't gotten the 2020s doesn't look like they're gonna get the 2021s very soon either, so. They did get a state share for their new facility in Wilmer, which they're still looking at the recycling building. State share was gonna be $2,896,000 with a local share of $724,000, so. They're waiting for architectural drawings on that building to see if it's really gonna be feasible, but I've been there, it looks like it's a good site, good transition right in. It's a nice big building that if it doesn't cost too much to make it what they needed, it would be a good choice, so. We have had a security meeting. Basically to say there, we're gonna talk about that at that future meeting about what were the larger items. There are some small items that are going to be done right away. I'm not gonna get specific for various reasons. And larger items, Andrew is intending to present for budgeting next year for those repairs. I had a PAC, meeting and attended a brain conference, and it doesn't appear to have done me any good, I guess.
Can you define?
It was interesting because, the brain conference, we had to make choices. And I did the SADS one, the one about the seasonal deficiency, and I really learned a lot. They had a psychologist on there, a doctor, and she went through everything for 1 hour, almost exactly 1 hour. She talked about all the things that are involved in not getting sun, vitamin D, you know, and what it does to our systems and how we feel. So,
Depression and.
yep, and so that was informative. As to PAC, they're looking for ways to get the youth more motivated into some of the things that they have. They would also like to get the youth to make presentations to the chambers or the JCs or some of the local organizations to let them know exactly what's going on in PAC. So a lot of different things. That's a lot of moving elements every meeting. But they've got a lot of good things going. Danny and I attended the first IT meeting in a while. I think Andrew laid out a very clear and defined objective from that, what you're looking for. We're really looking about the multiple package of software that is used by the courthouse in some of those costs. Are we buying two pieces of software using in two different departments, which virtually could have functioned with one piece of software? We're also looking at what's working and what's not. I kind of hope to be able to go to, on Monday I have a Counties Providing Technology meeting in Morris. It's an in-person meeting. Was really looking to be able to say, hey, the software you're providing us, but that's going to be down the road. So Beth and I were at the hospital board meeting yesterday, and I'm going to let her report on most of that. Just a couple things that really struck home. We approved the 2021 budget. They have set Friday, August the 13th for the golf tournament, which Beth will be, out there on the course playing, right?
That's what I used to do, but no more.
But something, both Beth and I discussed it right after the meeting that really hit. They have looked at how they can lean their operation. Okay, every position that goes open, everyone is looked at. Do we need to fill it? Can we get by without? They went from 184 FTEs, or full-time equivalents, over the last year, was it, down to 156?
I don't know if it's been a year or since our new CEO came.
Yeah, or since Kurt came. But they've been able to lean down their operation, which is gonna save them a significant amount of money. They're only projecting a 4.7 overall net profit for this year, which to a lot of people would say that's pretty good based on how much money there is. But if you don't take those steps to lean, that shrinks.
What was that figure again, Paul?
For the profit margin,
Profit for the year?
4.7 overall net profit
That's
is
their budget.
projected, right?
Their budget is it was 4.7
Yeah.
last year. Their new budget, they're projecting a 4%.
Yeah.
In the 2021 budget, I believe.
So,
It's still over $1 million, but it's down.
then the other thing they use, or are going to be using, they're basically practicing this year, moving to it next year, was instead of a step increases for their employees, they will go to a market and a merit. I'm gonna be curious to see how that works for them.
Well, number one, they have no unions in the hospital any longer, so I think that makes the options a little easier. I'm not sure, but they'll make it work, I think.
Yeah, they got the right base there, and I think that's gonna go, but it's gonna be fun to watch that as that grows next year. This year, all the employees will be seeing it, how it would have impacted them, and next year they roll into it, so.
I just wanna add to what we're seeing on Rescue Squad too. I think you're gonna have a back leg of the people that were shying away from hospitals and stuff. I mean, this ain't I don't wanna talk about generating revenue for a hospital, but I mean, I think you're gonna see a bigger influx moving forward from people that should have been going to the doctor and weren't.
You're absolutely right. I had a, exec board meeting for the hospital 2 weeks ago, and the ones coming in to ER are sick, very, very sick. And in fact, one of the topics of discussion was so sick we can't keep them. And a couple weeks ago, they were struggling to find beds like they were before in COVID. And that isn't all because of COVID, but COVID numbers are up, and then also sick people getting so sick and being put into the ICU, et cetera, even though the numbers on hospitalizations are higher.
They're waiting to call
So you're absolutely right,
services.
Steve. They're coming in very, very ill.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Nope, no. And then that, I'll note, when they hold a vaccine clinic, it costs about $10,000 per clinic with the hours that they're using to prepare and do it, so. And then I'm sure Beth is gonna cover some other things, from that when she gives her report. Then lastly, I spoke, the last time about UCAP's effort to build these 5 homes in Meeker County and the stumbling block that we ran into. So I have just a little bit more information I wanna share with you. These are not low-income homes, but they are income cap. So for Meeker County, the most someone can make to buy one of these homes is $105,600. That's the cap. These income limits are updated annually in May, so that dollar amount may go up a little bit next month. The maximum income limit for our program is 115% of the area median income for the balance of the state, excluding the metro counties and Rochester. So that's how they came up with that figure. The state statute that is really biting this whole thing and could end up not allowing us to build these homes is the state statutes that the prevailing wage would apply to any new housing construction that has a total financial assistance at a single project site of $100,000 or more. There isn't a house being built that's under $100,000 that is going to qualify. So since we receive our construction financing and grant funding from the Minnesota Housing Financing Authority, the total assistance per home is always over the $100,000 mark. Our average financial assistance per home for the Meeker County project is about $195,000. So we're $95,000 over the cap. So with that, I had a meeting with Deb Brandt from UCAP. And we just kind of did a round table. It was Deb, it was Tiffany, it was Jeff Gladys. And we decided that maybe a move that we should make is to have a roundtable discussion and get the decision makers to the roundtable, meaning Representative Erdahl, Representative Baker, Representative Torkelson, Senator Newman. Get them all at the table one time, be it in person or virtual, and discuss this, because we need a state statute change, is what we gotta have. So I called Dean Erdahl, had a great discussion with him. He supports what we're trying to do. He's on board. Commissioner Baker, of course, or Representative Baker from Wilmer is. So Deb has been able to organize one. It's going to be Friday, April 30th at 9:30. And I hope that all of you are free and can be a part of that meeting. I think just to show the support that we want these 5 homes in Meeker County, and it's important. And we're gonna see if we can try and get the decision makers to do a little action before they are done with this session. It's gonna be difficult. We have 19 months, 18 months on May 1st to complete this project, or we lose the funding. So.
Do you have the details of the meeting, when it's gonna be?
Nope, if you guys want, I'm gonna get you the Zoom meeting link.
Yeah.
So that you have it. I'll make sure it's sent to all of you. Deb is gonna coordinate all of that, so. I'm just gonna have her send it to everybody, okay? Andrew and all the commission, and we'll go from there. We are going to have, John DeCramer, who is, chairman of the Minnesota Housing Finance. He is also mayor in Lyon County, and Lyon County has also been encumbered by the prevailing wage. They had homes that they're now going to have to finish at the higher price, simply because they have no choice. They're too far into the process to back out now. I'm really, really pleased about this. I even reached out to AMC, and I talked with a legislative person there by the name of Gina Fortney. And I sent her all of the statutes that we're trying to do. She's looking into it. I believe she will be a part of our meeting. I haven't had a chance to visit with her since, but she was certainly on board, excuse me, with what we're trying to do. So I'm just trying to circle the wagons on this one and hope that we can push enough to have the right impact coming forward. So if you would, please mark that on your calendar, the 30th at 9:30 in the morning. I'll make sure you guys all get an invite. And we'll get that sent. It'll come from Debbie Brandt from UCAP. So.
Commissioners, you'll just make sure that we're following the open meeting law with having notice that we're gonna all be congregating as five, correct?
Good point. I'm gonna have to remind Debbie that too, because it's not gonna be just us. It will be Lyon County and.
Yeah, if there's more than two commissioners, we have to notice it as a public meeting.
Yeah.
So if you would prefer that this not be noticed as a public meeting, which you may or may not, so it's up to you.
Okay, I'll touch base with Deb and let's
We can
see
talk
how
about
that goes. Yeah. Other than that,
Do you coordinate with Habitat for Humanity?
No.
Do all of them have to be new dwellings?
They had proposed, well, see, the theory behind it is, okay, this is a little higher income, so at $105,000, you can afford to buy a $200,000 home and probably have a reasonable payment. What that's going to do is they're going to move out of a lower income or a lower cost house to get into this one, opening up a lower cost home for somebody else. It's kind of that trickle down effect.
Okay.
So, I did speak with Andrew and, ask if perhaps maybe, at a work session, we could have, Deb from UCAP come and make a 30-minute to 45-minute presentation, on all of the things they do, so that, I'm sure Beth, you've seen that because they've probably presented before in the past.
Right.
I don't know if Steve, you were there when they did or not, but I thought it might be good to see all the different areas that helps Meeker County and all the things that they have, because it's a vast amount of things that they do here in Meeker County.
I've listened to their presentations through City and Valley, not through the board so much.
So, and I think you already have it set up.
We're set up for May for that meeting.
So.
I received a note from our labor attorney, who's gonna be a part of our closed session, that we're running up against a schedule conflict for her, so
Yeah,
may I
we need to
suggest
get
that
one.
we adjourn to closed session, do that, and then we can come back.
I was done anyway.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so now we will wait until after our close. So at this time, I would like to close our session of the board meeting to discuss negotiations.
And you do need a motion for that.
Motion to close the meeting.
Second that motion?
Here a second. Okay, any further discussion about closing and reopening? If none, we'll take the vote. All those in favor of closing for a session, say aye.
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 All those opposed? We are now open